last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live from a tiny studio somewhere in North America. This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host, the silverback of ufology. Here's Don Ecker.
And welcome back to Dark Matters Radio, right here with the KGRADB family. And this show, I think, is going to be not only entertaining, but it's going to be kind of instructional, because we are going to be talking about a case that happened 30 years ago. It hit nationwide on August 28th, 1995, from one end of the country to the other and around the world. And it involved the potential case of an actual extraterrestrial dead body that allegedly had been recovered from a UFO crash in 1947. Now listen, stay tuned, because there are a hell of a lot of ins and outs of this case. Now, incidentally, on Thursday, on UAP Crossfire, I'm going to be heading that flight again, and we are bringing in the executive producer of that Alien Autopsy film. So this week, being the 30th anniversary, I thought it was high time to take an in-depth look. So let's go back to the beginning. In 1993, I was, and my wife, Vicki, who was the executive editor, the chief executive editor of UFO Magazine and the publisher, and I, as the director of research and media liaison, were invited to Vienna, Austria, to the first World UFO Congress to give addresses. We went over there. My God, what a beautiful, beautiful area. Vienna was, in a word, I found it exquisite. And one of the great delights that I saw there was a cathedral church, St. Stephen's, that was beyond comprehension. Well, while we were there, we met for the first time, face-to-face, a number of researchers from the United Kingdom. Jenny Randalls was there. John and his then wife, Ann Spencer, were there. And Philip Mantle and his then wife, Suzanne. Now, during that week, it was highly memorable. Their coffee in Austria was beyond description, okay? Really, I'm telling you the truth. I am a coffeeholic, and never in my life did I have a better cup of coffee than in Vienna. So one morning, I'm downstairs in the hotel, and Philip Mantle came down. Now, I knew Mantle by his name, reputation. We were having a pleasant chat. And suddenly he asked me, he said, "Hey, have you heard anything about Steven Spielberg, the famous movie producer, director, etc., Spielberg, having access to some footage from the Roswell crash that shows an alien body being autopsied?" Well, this was the first I had heard of that. Now, I had heard some other stories about Spielberg having some highly secret UFO information, and that came from a very good source. Now, if it was true or not, I don't know. But this was a brand new thing. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, Phil, I don't know, but when I get back to Los Angeles, I'll make some inquiries. I know a number of television and film producers over there, and I'll start making some inquiries. Now, at that time, I had no reason to doubt what was being offered to me. So when I get back, we get home, we have stuff to do. Stuff had been piling up at the magazine for a week, because UFO magazine, we had a very small staff. Just myself, Vicky, and we had an administrative assistant. So we're going through all that. And then I remembered what Mantle had asked me, and I said, okay, I'll start making some calls. Now, one of the people I called was Robert Kiviat. Incidentally, Kiviat will be on the show on UAP Crossfire once again on Thursday. And I asked him about that. And he said, gee, I don't know. And Kiviat was very much into the overall UFO thing. He had been doing a lot of stuff on Fox on UFOs. I had been in a number of those broadcasts. And I thought, well, if anybody can find out what the rumor mill has to say, it's probably him. So he gets back to me a number of days later, and he said, no, I didn't find out anything about Steven Spielberg. And I said, well, and I had told him what the story was. And I said, well, supposedly a World War II combat photographer had been tasked to film this after the crash with one of the recovered bodies, okay? So he said, I'll start making some inquiries. Well, along that time, another name along the way was tossed into the mix. And it was a guy by the name of, Ray Santilli. Now, I had no idea who Ray Santilli was. So Kiviat makes some more inquiries. A bit of time goes by. Suddenly, Ray Santilli is announcing he has this footage, and nobody at that point supposedly knew who this combat photographer was that filmed this alleged autopsy. Now, at that time, I was doing my radio show on CRN, the cable radio network, called UFOs Tonight. That ran for about 5.5 years, garnered a hell of a big audience with that show. And among other things, I had been talking about this. And then we ran some articles in UFO Magazine. Before you know it, this is everywhere, okay? Now, among my listeners on UFOs Tonight were some fans. One of them, father, had been a combat photographer in World War II, okay? And this guy contacted me and put me in touch with these fellows because they had a little group that they kept after the war. They'd periodically get together and, among other things, commune in their fellowship. And I ended up talking to them about this. Now, we finally got a few snaps from this alleged footage. Now, among the people interested in this is when I first met, for real, Mr. Mark Center. Now, Mark was taken over by this story. And he began doing, and believe me when I tell you, this guy knows how to do a deep, deep dive. And of course, he's one of my co-hosts, so he's going to be talking about this tonight. But he dove into that. He was putting out also a newsletter during this period of time about the autopsy. And nobody knew whether this was real or not. Questions started to be raised because some of the pics that had been released that came from Santilli showed this body in what looked like a medical room, was lying on a gurney, and on the wall was a telephone with a coiled telephone wire. And for a while, people were saying, oh, they didn't have those back in 1947. Well, in fact, they did. Okay. So that kind of got blown out the door. But there were other things. Now, this alleged cameraman had absconded, according to the story, with a canister of film that he shot showing the autopsy. So I get on the horn and I call Santilli. I called him in the UK, okay? Told him who I was and talked with him for a while. And before you know it, I think it was a facsimile, a fax, all right, of this tag that was on this canister of film. And then down the line, I got the transcript from this alleged cameraman who everybody said was an American. Okay. And Santilli's secretary, I guess, was alleged to have typed this transcript from an interview he did with Santilli and his people. Well, as soon as I got that, man, I'm telling you what, I planted my butt in a chair and I read that top to bottom 3 or 4 times right there, same spot. And the more I read it, the bigger the questions got in my mind. Why? Well, I'm a military veteran, okay? And American GIs, if they're asked, did you serve? Yeah, I served. Where? Well, I served in the Army, or I served in the Marine Corps, or I served in the Air Force, or I served in the Navy, okay? Or sometimes, depending upon your mood, yeah, I was in the fucking green machine, okay? Or a Marine would say, yeah, I was in the crotch. You know what they never said? Ever. Nobody, no American ever said, I was in the forces. That is a British term, in the forces. And as soon as I read that, I knew no American would have ever said that. So I immediately brought that to the forefront. Hey, I don't know who this guy was, but if he was an American and he said that, I'll eat your damned apple and screw the core, okay? Well, before you know it, we get word back. Well, the British secretary, she wasn't sure, and she just used a British term, blah, blah, blah. Well, bullshit. I'll tell you what. Like I said, I was in the Army and then I was a cop. Now, many a time, I would have recorded a statement as a cop, as a police officer, from a suspect or a witness, you name it, okay? And then it had to be typed up. Well, by God, that was typed up verbatim. You go into court with a screwed up statement, well, you can forget it. So I knew this guy was as full of shit as a Christmas turkey, Ray Santilli. Okay. Well, then I started interfacing with a number of people in the field. One of them was Mark Center. Okay. Now, Mark and I have been friends for well over 30 years now. And when I started doing this show a few years ago, and I invited Mark to be one of the co-hosts because, like I said, this guy knows how to do research. He accepted, which I've always been grateful for. So without a lot of further ado, we're going to chew this thing up tonight. So let me bring on Mr. Mark Center, and let me bring on Mr. Gerry Kissell, our other co-host. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. How the hell you doing?
Good. Very good.
Mark, with my opening remarks, do you have anything you wish to say? You want to add to it? You want to subtract from it? You tell me, buddy.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Can't really point to any other story in ufology that quite unfolded like this. The Mothman and all that stuff. They didn't have people show up at a museum and watch a video of the Mothman, right? So it's very different the way that this thing was put out there. I got into it mostly because I'm into like gory movies, and I got very friendly with the K&B special effects guys. The one guy did all the effects, or was in charge of the effects on The Walking Dead. So that really turned me on, because I'm looking at this thing going, I don't know if this is real or not, but I dig special effects.
Are you talking about Greg Nicotero?
Right. So they had the K&B group, and the day either before or after Thanksgiving, I don't remember the year, they actually allowed me to come up with my first wife, and we shot them around a table. They showed me the whole shop. They knew me from nobody. I sent them a fax, and I said, this is what I'm working on. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this thing. And they were very nice guys, and they showed me around, and yeah. So, there are, as Don knows, you meet other people when you're involved in any sort of research. That's even maybe more enlightening than the research itself, depending on what your likes are. But the first work that I did, this book by Michael Hessman. Now, Philip Mantle's name is on it, but he didn't really have a lot to do with that book. There were so many problems with that thing that I did a pretty deep dive on that book in my old website. to at least bring those issues up. Problems I had with the book, problems with what Hessman was saying and all that. Fast forward another 15 years or so, and Hessman, I'm not saying it was because of me, but Hessman dropped out totally because he was very involved, as Don knows, in the 80s and 90s. I mean, that guy was on, TV shows, and he wrote books and yada, yada, yada. He dropped out completely. His college work was about religious scholarly stuff, and he actually got a job of some sort at the Vatican or something like that. And I went on to his LinkedIn and that stuff, and I noticed nothing up there about any of the stuff he did for 20 years. And I contacted him and I said, "What's up?" And he goes, "Well, you can imagine, Mark, that if you're going to flip your career over to something else completely removed from that, probably not a good idea to muddy the waters." And I kind of agreed with him that he wanted to do something else and make a living. So he just left all that in the rearview mirror. I have a lot of issues with stuff he used to say, things he would pass off as real. Evidently, maybe he purloined footage from time to time from people, put his name on it. I don't know exactly about that, but some people got in touch with me about that. Anyway, when it comes to the autopsy, we can end the show right here, Don, and this is why we're never going to know. Now, we think it's fake, but we're never going to have that physical conclusive proof. Ray Santilli never gave any footage, any original copy footage with the alien on there to be looked at by Kodak or anybody else. No matter what you people might hear out there from the people who believe this footage is real still, he never gave footage with the alien on it to be tested, ever, to anybody. He gave clear leader to Lawrence Kate at the Hollywood Kodak office, who I talked to. He gave some snippets that might have been a skewed view of the autopsy room, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is he never did that. And that is a huge problem. And he'll never answer that. He'll be a snake and a weasel about that. And we can go on. It's a deep story, but we can go on, Don. But that's probably for me the biggest problem with the whole case is that he refused to do that.
We were in touch with Kodak. Mm-hmm. Okay, back at that time, and Kodak film. Now, of course, today, I don't even know. Are they still making Kodak?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the new Jurassic Park was shot on film. So, yes, they still do film.
Okay. That had a code on that leader of the film. Okay. Now, depending upon what the code is, the code on that leader allegedly was either 1947. Of course, that's when the incident at Roswell happened. 1927, or conversely, 1967.
Yep.
Now, we all know when the Roswell incident happened, regardless of what that incident was 1947. So that kind of fell in there. But then a lot of things happened. One of the people that I interviewed, and Mark, you'll know this name, during that period of time, was a camera specialist expert, worked for all kinds of photography magazines, etc., by the name of Bob Schell, Robert Schell. Schell was involved in this. Now, what happened to Schell later, and what the hell, I'm just going to throw it out there. Bob Shell had a model, and apparently he was having extracurricular activities with this gal. This gal liked her drugs. Bob apparently, I guess, liked her drugs, but he liked his drugs. And during a evening session, the girl OD'd and died. Well, that kind of threw a lot of cold water on everything Bob had to say about this case. He's currently in the Stony Lonesome Slammer, okay? Haven't talked to him in, Jesus, years. And so that was one of the problems that cropped up. And of course, this document, this statement from the cameraman was fraudulent in my book. And I began calling it fraudulent. Now, you and I had met back then. Did you follow what we were doing at UFO Magazine?
Yeah. I had a subscription to your thing. I went to all the conventions. I brought them. I did a thing. This is back in the days of the zine, right? A lot of people put out zines on uncut horror films and stuff like that. And my zine was called UFOs, Aliens, and You. And I printed up almost 500,000 pages. And each one was about 50 pages long, and I gave them away around the world. And I paid for the shipping and the whole thing. Never took a penny for any of this stuff because, hey, I'm on a religious crusade. I want the truth to get out. Me and Video Dave Aaron. And I was completely yes, I was 100%. I was right involved in the timeline. CompuServe forum, where Ray Santilli would come on and talk to us, and you could ask him questions. Hey, Ray. Yeah. I mean, I was deeply involved in all this stuff. Had my own autopsy group and an email group, probably anywhere from 8 to 15 people. Never
this is
really.
Back when bulletin board was a thing.
Yeah. So I had the group, and that's where Spiros Malaris popped up through Philip Mantle. And as much as the non-dating of footage with the alien creature on it was never done, and that should be the end of it right there. While Spiros Malaris, who's in the UK, who says he made the whole thing, and he said he, made the bodies and all that, and the sets and all that. When he signed the contract with Santillian, the contract said, you got to give everything back to me as part of the contract. And he did. However, when he was in my group and we were going back and forth, there was a couple of people on the group that still to this day believe the stuff is real, or at least some of the stuff is real, or something like that. He looked through hard drives and things, and what did he find? He found a little clip of unaged debris footage on one of those hard drives, and he gave that to us. He didn't hold it back or anything. He sent that out, and it was, I don't know, like a 10-second clip or less of that tent with the table with all the stuff there, crystal clear. So at the very least, I know Ray Santilli's a snake because he wouldn't have the footage dated with the alien on there, and I know Spiros Malaris had something to do with it because where did he get this footage? This was crystal, and this was before AI. This was before you could clean stuff up like the Patterson film and all that. And I looked at that and I said, well, look, at the very least, at that point, Spiros Malaris was in this universe of the creation of this thing. He put a book out called This, and it took them a while to do it. I can't find it. It's in my archives here. You can't. It was a self-published thing. You can't buy it now, but I got a copy of it. It's very well done. How much evidence is in there? Not very much. He did what he was supposed to do. Gave it all back to Santilli, and by luck, there was this little clip he found on a hard drive. On, like me, I've got like 50 hard drives around here, right? So,
when did you decide this was totally fraudulent?
I held on the fence longer than most people because of the inspection of the footage. That really bothered me. It was like, come on. And Santilli to this day says he still has footage of the first autopsy, where it's kind of like a gynecological exam, right? And then I guess you might want to ask Kibby this. I think that's one of the reasons why they decided not to use that in the show, because it's a little graphic, right? But he, up until, I don't know, time flies, but let's say 20 years or something, he made the claim they still had that footage and they would release it, blah, 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 blah. When I finally had to finally make the call like this, while Spiros Malaris doesn't have a buku amount of evidence, okay, he seems to have the timeline down pretty tight. The location of his girlfriend's condo where they shot it, supposedly, and that unaged footage. That was a game changer for me. Nobody has ever seen that. Nobody ever shared that before. That means he was in the room, in a manner of speaking.
Why in the hell didn't he totally photo document everything he did?
It doesn't matter if he did. He signed a contract that said, you will give me back everything associated with the project. And he's in the business of sorts. So you sign the contract and you follow through. That's his story, okay? So I'm not saying that he didn't, but he supposedly gave it all back, and then he found that clip. And as far as I know, that's one of the only clips. You've seen the photo of John Humphreys, the guy who helped make the bodies, and they show a similar body, but it isn't the same body, or maybe it's an early draft of the body, things of that sort. But I suppose if I had to add it up, Malaris doesn't seem to be holding back nearly as much or at all. Ray Santilli's a snake and he's holding it all back. And
I'm going to tell you something. After all this business began to blossom, and this was in the spring of '95, I had been talking to Kiviat. He went to the UK. The Fox network made a bid on this. As we all know, they got it. Santilli, then after this show aired a total of 3 times on the network, garnering huge ratings every time they aired it, Santilli started to sell VHS tapes and CDs, DVDs.
I bought 2 for 60. No, it was only on tape. I bought 2 of them for $60 each plus shipping.
Now, here's my point. He was selling these anywhere between $25 and $35 a pop.
Well, I paid 60, Don. Each.
That's $30 a pop.
No, each.
Yeah, $30 each, right?
No, $60 each.
Oh, Jesus. Well, that's even more.
Yep.
And I sat down one day with my calculator is we had a rough estimate of how many videos that he had sent out. That guy had to make in the arena of somewhere between $35-40 million. Hell, maybe even more than that. All right. Based on a fraud. Okay. Look, there's no way in God's green earth that I thought, especially after I read that statement from the GI cameraman, I read that, I knew this was pure bullshit, pure. And there was even talk at one point of a lawsuit being brought against Santilli. Do you have any info on that, Mark?
Well, that was, not much. It was rumor. A guy with the initials KKK was part of one of those. We won't get into this here, but it never went anywhere because can you think of many of these situations that have ever gone to court, Don? The Patterson film footage, or Nessie. I mean, there's a lot of people who have made a lot of money off of horse shit.
Yes. Well, okay. Now, later, during that year of 95, I did a lot of thinking about this. I put on my cop hat, did a hell of a lot of thinking, and then I thought back. I am convinced because, now this is metaphorical, okay? I don't mean this literally, metaphorical. But I am convinced that Philip Mantle was in bed with Santilli. He made money out of this too. I think because of what we did at UFO Magazine, I am convinced he was sent to prime the pump with us about this. Okay, I am convinced of that. And the Spielberg deal, there was a Spielberg involved, but his name was Volker Spielberg from Germany. And the guy supposedly had a interest in European pornography over there.
The best kind.
He was filming European pornography. Now, hey, I guess in a way that's an honest buck, all right? But he was involved with this whole thing. And Santilli, of course, nobody that I'm aware of, at least on the surface, confronted him about that, except for Bob Kiviat. And Kiviat on Thursday, I'm sure, will talk about this.
Yeah, I'm not exactly.
Volker Spielberg, okay, had ties through his family to German Nazism during the war. Sig Heil, okay, Sig Heil. So I don't know how deep that went, but one thing he did ask Robert Kiviat when Kiviat met him, are you Jewish?
Yeah, I don't know of his true involvement because if you listen to what Spiros has to say, when they shot the first one and they showed it to Spiros and he said, this is a joke. And Santilli said, well, I don't have any more money, which evidently came from the German. And Spiros said, well, I'll put the money up for the second one to show you how you could really do this, right? So, yeah, I guess his involvement, if I recall correctly, was he ponied up the money for the first one. That was a little bit more exploratory, shall we say, with the body. And then Spiros did the second one, evidently. Yeah, with Mantle, I don't know. I've got this Mantle book and this one, and I've when I went to one of the conferences, I had lunch with him and Jaime Maussan, and everything was fine there. And we kept in contact a long time until, again, KKK got involved with some other horse shit, and I just dropped out of the whole thing. And it wasn't that those two were together on anything. It's just, how certain people like to horn in on things and try to make it their own. That kind of thing went down. But there are still people out there who believe this. I know Skywatcher said, well, this is an old story. And he's right. But then again, how many old stories are out there that are still being believed?
Well, my God, old story. The Roswell thing is an old story.
Right.
The DC overflights in 52. That's an old damn story. Okay? Yeah. The Apollo 11 touchdown on the moon. Seeing, allegedly, UFOs sitting on a crater watching them. That's an old story.
Well, right. So, my view of this is, sadly, because of the internet and people who believe the Earth is flat and we never went to the moon, you're never going to convince a lot of people of this. There's a guy on Facebook right now, a Brit. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his name, but he is talking frequently every week about the alien autopsy. Oh, yeah. In fact, he asked to join my group, and after I monitored him for a while, I decided I just broke off contact with him because it's kind of like a religion, right? And it's like, well, I've already got a couple of people in the group who are steadfast believers in some aspects of it. Spyros is an artist, and he made up some, you see the ETs in the canyon and yada, yada, yada. When a location, I don't remember all this, but when a location of the crash was given out during our back and forth in the group, one guy went out there. I think his name was Ed. I think he's probably passed by now. And what he found in this location was this glassy material that looked melted, let's say, from high temperatures. Okay. Now, this is in Arizona, Nevada. And my question was, because this is the way I think, I said, Ed, did you go anywhere else, like start a search pattern type of thing and start going out and out and out, or even talk to other geologists and gemologists and things about this material and find out if there are other deposits of this stuff around? I got no answer. See, that's how I do the research, is that, well, okay, that's pretty cool. He says it hit up here. He went out there and he took some film and all that. Oh, it hit here, and this old story about the tree still has black stuff on the top and stuff, right? Even after 40 years. Is okay, in the desert, that might be possible. But I told him, I said, dude, you haven't done your due diligence here. You're telling me this is the spot where this thing crashed, and yet you're not trying to confirm if this material, this melted looking glass stuff, might just be out in the desert in a lot of places. I don't know. That's not my expertise at all. I hardly have any. But that was never done, and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, that guy is still up there. He talks about it. If you bring up these questions, there's always an excuse from both sides, I suppose. But, I'm glad you're doing it so people can hear our view of this thing, and some of these names, they can do their own research. Is this going to make a difference for the flat earthers and we never went to the moon people? No, but you can't be bothered by that, right? You can't be bothered by that because the internet has made a shit show of all of this stuff. All of this. So I haven't been in touch with Mantle in a long time. He did get sick again. He's got a heart thing that killed his brother, if I'm correct. But he's still hanging in there. So I sent a little thing to his wife and said, "Hey, I hope he pulls through," and he did. But this was a very interesting thing. Now, again, Don, I didn't make my call for a long time because some stuff bothered me about the case, and it wasn't stuff that pointed to it being real. It was basic investigative stuff that wasn't being done. That's what bothered me. And I said, I'm not going to make my decision on this until we have some basic investigative things done, like the dating and all that. Even with Kiviat, right? And I don't really know him that well. He did ask me. He called me up once when I was involved with Video Dave and all that to possibly be on the greatest hoaxes ever solved, told thing. And I told him I don't want to. That's not my thing. I don't need to be on TV. And I just not my thing. So I didn't. But, he's a producer. He's never going to tell us the behind the
here's the deal. Here's the deal. When I get involved in something like this, I automatically go into my detective mode, okay? And originally, early on into this process, before July of 95, okay, I've been waiting for some time because he had the tape or the film, whatever, the tape.
Yeah, the tape, yeah.
Of what Santilli had given him for Fox.
Yes.
I wanted to see it. Okay, I wanted to see the goddamn thing. I was the person that brought it to him. Finally, one morning, it was a Sunday, he called me up and he said, "Come on down to my office, you can see the video."
What's in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box?
We go down there. Vicky and I go down. And I see it. And I got to tell you, first blush.
Absolutely.
It was compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
Okay, first blush. And then Kiviat says, "Hey, Don," he said, "I want you to do the background investigation on the cameraman. Look, right over here. That's your desk. That's your telephone. Do you want to start?" And I said, whoa. I said, "We haven't discussed anything about money or payment because I ain't doing this for my health, goddammit. I work for a living, okay?" And then he looked real sheepish. And he said, "Well,
you'll get a credit."
yeah. We really don't have any money to pay you." And that pissed me off. And I said, "Really?
Make it
well,
so."
Let me see. Jonathan Frakes is hosting this, right? Commander Beefcake from Star Trek.
There you go.
Commander Beefcake. Is he doing it for free? He didn't have nothing to say.
Yeah, of course.
So I said, "Well, Bob, have a good day. Vicky, we're leaving." And that was it.
It's funny that you should say that because Video Dave Aaron, and I don't have the timeline perfect on this because long time ago, but he got a copy, a dupe of the whole package that evidently that you saw too. It had the debris footage on there and it had all the other footage. He got a copy of that from somewhere, and then he started duping it, baby. And he sent me a copy for free, because we were good friends at that point. And he was duping that thing off like it had the Midas's gold touch on that thing. I don't know how many of those things he sold, but I got it a month ahead of the show, so it must have been July, the same as you. Now, can you remember, and again, I don't have a diary, when you saw the original tent footage Not the stuff with the tie and all the debris, but that tent footage that was on the greatest hoaxes ever told.
Well, it was in that time frame.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But the bullshit story that was being passed around, 1947. Who was the president in 1947? Harry S. Truman. And the bullshit story was that Truman was photographed
Yeah.
going through seeing that material.
Right.
So everybody wanted to see that.
Yep.
Because if they would have had that, that would have been almost.
And then when questioned
positive.
about that, until he changed the story slightly and said, "Oh, it was on a label." We never saw the label, but that's how he changed the story, right?
Right.
Very interesting.
Once a
So
bullshitter, always a bullshitter.
Gary,
I've
what do you got
some
to say?
thoughts done. I've got some stuff because I've been holding back. I've been talking in the chat, saying the things I want to do because I wanted you two to work your shit out. So I'm reminded of something else that happened a few years before this with the Majestic 12 documents.
Yeah.
Because I remember looking at it, and the first thing I noticed, and I saw other people popping up with this stuff, was how they wrote the military date in there. And I said, that's not a real military document. It's not. It's fake. That is somebody that doesn't know how to write a military date in the military. Because the military date is day, month, year. Always. In all documents. You know what I'm talking about, Don.
Yeah.
And this falls into the same category. And what bugs me about this is how people that do these things think that they're somehow going to help. And they don't understand that when you fake this shit, you're doing damage to the future research. You're doing real damage.
It's all about attention, dude. It's all about attention.
I know. And making money, if possible.
So is there anybody in the chat who is...
Well, you got Rick Laguinness's wig. He says, Don is a raging capitalist.
Goddamn right I am.
Goddamn right.
No, I'm saying, is there anybody in there who is more of a, well, you know, we don't know if it's true or not?
No. I think pretty much everybody over here is in the same camp of,
Okay.
that was some bullshit.
Right.
And, you know, once a liar, you're always a liar. Anything Santilli said after that was like, well, I have this. It's like, no, you would have shown that if you had that. You know, that's bullshit. And what's worse is they destroyed the props. They fucking paid to have those alien bodies made and then cut them up into little pieces.
Well, that's the story. That's the story. But again, that's a very common thing to do, even if you're not doing a hoax. I mean, you got to remember that even in the 90s, to save this stuff to sell at auction wasn't as big a deal as it is now. It just was not.
I'm not talking about that, Mark. I'm talking about that what is purported to have happened is it was cut up and then spread out.
Well, right. I don't know if I can believe that Spiros had nothing to do with any of that. All he said is, I gave everything back. I gave everything back. And he says, I wish I wouldn't have, but a contract's a contract. And if you start lying about
because they were
contract,
afraid of being found out is why they wanted it back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's boy. Yeah, I spent a lot of time, Don. I went and I talked to camera people. I drove around, not out of state, but I drove around, made phone calls around the nation. I was one of the only guys to talk to Lawrence Kate from the Hollywood Kodak office and ask him. I put that on my website and in the newsletter, and he said, I'm kicking myself in the ass, Mark, that I didn't unspool it to see what was on it. I only looked at the leader. And again, that was another one of those weird things, Don. I'm not an investigator like you, but I'm looking at that going, wait a minute. You and Santillan Schofield or Schofield and somebody else, I forget. You take one can of the 22 or 23 cans that they bought and come all the way over to Los Angeles, California to go have this guy look at this thing, this priceless film footage, and you schlep it all the way over. And I said, that just, there's place, and supposedly they did do this in Brussels and the UK and a few places and got the same answer.
France.
Right. And they got the same answer, of course, because Kodak is Kodak is Kodak. But you would bring this all the way over. Really? You wouldn't just fax the edge code to them? Because faxes were very popular then. You would just fax them the edge code and say, hey, so what's the date here? Yeah. So,
well, before we go, Genghis Khan is on the fence. He says he's on the fence, Mark. Go ahead. Hey. I'm sorry.
We'll have to pick up on the other side, guys, because we're at almost the top of the hour. We got about 30 seconds before we have to go to break. And I'm sure Skywatcher will be very happy about that.
Oh, yes.
I'm notorious for screwing the brakes. I get caught up in telling a story, and before I know it, Don, we got to go to break, Don.
Hey, wait, Don. I think I got a story to tell. Wait, Don, wait.
We'll be back on the other side with more, gang. And hey, here's something to remember. 3i/Atlas. 3i/Atlas. Mm-hmm. We'll be back. And we are back, and before we get back into it, I got a question for you gentlemen.
Well, where's Mark? No, Mark fell down. There. Mark has fallen and can't get up. Mark has fallen and can't get up.
I got a question for you all. How many of you have ever gotten a Big Mac? Oh, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
How many of you ever got a Big Mac because you had good intentions?
Well, the wife just brought home a grass-fed ribeye from Sam's Club. I know what I'm having tonight. Oh, my goodness. Oh no. Goodness.
So anyway, for that audience member in the chat room calling me a raging capitalist, you don't get Big Macs. Don't get Big Macs because you have good intentions.
Or the new band from Gerry, Raging Boner. Please welcome Raging Boner.
You saw my post about that.
Oh,
that's funny.
Oh yeah.
That was funny. Like, some people thought that was a real post, and they were like, "Oh my God, I hope you're okay." And I'm like, "No, it's a joke."
You know what Mark did? Boy, he scammed me a few months ago. He knows I'm a huge fan of Snake Plissken. Okay, love Snake Plissken.
Hell yeah!
So he doctored up a phony movie poster with Snake Plissken, Escape from Earth, with aliens, and I called him up.
Supposed to get.
I said, "Hey, dude, is that for real?" And he laughed. No. I was all excited there for a minute. I had a tingle run down my leg.
So what's this is, I don't know what to think of this, Don. And you've been closer to the Hollywood thing by far than me, but you've got the Roswell case, and then it ends up to be a movie, a good movie that your buddy wrote, right? Your buddy wrote the script to that?
Paul Davids?
Yeah.
Paul Davids with Kyle MacLachlan, yeah.
Right. And then you have the case of the guys in Snowflake, who get the guy that gets right. Yeah, and I like that film. I thought, other than the ending, and even they said that was bull, but I kind of like that. Then you have the Autopsy, and then Ant and Dec, the comedy duo, who are still out there being comedy duos. They make a movie, Alien Autopsy, right? And I'm not going to say it was as good as those other two movies, but I watched it.
I never watched it. I never saw it.
It's not bad. It's not. The guy who, I think if I recall correctly, the guy who plays the cameraman is Harry Dean Stanton. Well, come on, that's worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah, there, yeah.
So, but then they take it a little further, and they were going to do a Broadway show on the Alien Autopsy. I don't think that ever happened. I can't recall, but does the Hollywoodization of these cases mean anything in the big picture of this stuff?
Okay, I'll give it to you straight, just like I got it 30 plus years ago. For about roughly 10, 12 years, I was very, very close friends with Dwight Schultz. Dwight Schultz from Howling Mad Murdoch and the A-Team, Lieutenant Broccoli on Star Trek, The Next Generation and Voyager, okay, was very, very fascinated and interested in the UFO subject. And I asked him one time, I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you know all these people. And hell, he knew them all. Big, big freaking stars. Patrick Stewart and Mr. T, George Papard, God, you name it. He was he played Robert Oppenheimer in Fat Man and Little Boy with Paul Newman. I mean, you don't get much bigger than that. And I said, how many of those people think there might be something to this overall UFO thing? And he said, Don, let me tell you. He said, most of them think it's crap, the ones I've talked to. Okay? But if suddenly little brown bags of dog poop became the in thing, Hollywood would be hawking it from one end of the country to the other. And that's it. It's all about money. It's about bucks. So, what are you going to do with something like that?
Benno from Oz, 1975, in the chat says, the Backyard Professor said there are many clues in popular media, movies, books, and other forms, and he believes it is a type of soft disclosure. What do you think?
Bullshit.
How long is this soft disclosure going to go on?
Look, I've said it before. Not that I'm hawking my paper. I wrote a paper about a year and a half ago called Disclosure, a Dangle Too Far. Now, granted, I haven't put it in many places where people can download and read it. Maybe I should do something about that. But here's my bottom line. Disclosure. Never, ever going to happen. Why? Well, there's been some talk about it. And yes, the government in the last several years has talked more about it than they ever have before. Okay. But how far have we gotten? Where are we at with this? It's still a big freaking mystery. Why? In 1947, or perhaps a little before, UFOs popped up at the end of World War II. There were UFO sightings, and after the war was over, there was another phenomenon that popped up. Ghost rockets that were being fired, apparently, over Northern Europe. Nobody ever knew where those things came from or what happened to them. Okay? So this UFO thing is not new. But 1947, it's my firm belief, and it's because of people that I've talked to, the research that I've done now for closing in on 40 years, there is a core secret at the middle of this. A core secret that apparently is so terrifying to the powers that be that literally all evidence points to less than a handful of people know everything there is to know. And there's terror that if the secret is ever released or gets out, it will shake up civilization around the globe. Now that sounds pretty grandiose, but whatever this core secret is surrounded by a special access program, which means you ain't never going to hear nothing from nothing ever, my friend, nothing. Now, why and how does national security figure into all of this? Well, just think about this. You may have heard me say it before. I'm going to say it again. But immediately on the heels of the Roswell event, whatever that event was, 3 things happened. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately following that event that changed potentially this nation from a republic of laws to a police state in the worst of circumstances. Number 1, the United States Army Air Force, which had been all through World War II, okay? We didn't have a separate service entity. It was the Army Air Force, was stripped completely out of the Army and made its own separate organization, which meant now they have tighter control over it. Number 2, out of the blue, the government created the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Immediately following Roswell, all during World War II, at the height of one of the most destructive wars in all of history, we didn't have a Central Intelligence Agency. Now we did. And one more thing. Into law was signed the National Security Act. And that was truly draconian, okay, with a capital D, draconian, which, among other things, enabled the powers that be, if it was deemed a threat to national security of the United States of America, they can upend, including premeditated murder. People don't like to talk about that, but that's in the freaking law, okay? So, with all of that on the heels of Roswell, think about it for just a minute. What does that tell you? That something was discovered that scared the bejesus out of them.
Well,
so there you go. Hello?
Yeah, no. I was just thinking about the you know, in 1896 and 97, we had the airships. People didn't know what they were. They were up there, yada, 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 right?
Right.
While they saw these things, which is a form of disclosure, by just seeing them, you don't get an answer as to what they are. But it is a form of disclosure. Fast forward up to last year or the year before, those drones, right?
Yeah.
Now, that is a form of disclosure. It's just not a concrete, this is what it is style of disclosure. society moves along after the airships of the 1800s. Society moves along after Roswell. Society moves along after the flap in the 90s in Mexico. And we just continue to move along, herky-jerky style as it may be. So when we have Grush and these people, you know, and the government getting involved like they've never been involved before, and the SAPs are absolutely involved in this situation, we're never going to know because SAPs are involved. Right. You're never going to know, ever. You can't, you're not even supposed to mention that you know about them, right?
Well, you see, that's the thing. That's the thing. I did a paper before I did the disclosure document. I did a paper on the Eric Davis, Thomas Wilson situation. Now, Eric Davis is a scientist. He worked for Bobby Bigelow at NIDS, okay? People I've talked to in his field, I might add, people I've talked to said that Davis could have a raging argument, shaking the foundations of the building with himself. All right. And Thomas Wilson was an admiral who headed up the Defense Intelligence Agency. Now, back in the mid-90s, all right, there were some people, among others, journalist Billy Cox, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Stephen Greer. All of them were at the Pentagon, and they corralled several senior officers. One of them was Wilson. Okay, now this guy, the job he had, basically he headed up the military version of the CIA. Okay? If he were a civilian, he would have been in charge of the CIA. No, he was a military officer in charge of the DIA. And they convinced him and several others that, yes, there is something to this UFO thing. So, Admiral, will you do a little checking around? Yeah, I will. So he did, according to documents that later surfaced. And I got to tell you, I didn't know any of this until I saw a video that Richard Dolan did. So I got to give full credit to Dolan for bringing this to my attention.
Yeah, yep.
Okay? And Wilson talked to some people at the Pentagon. Somebody suggested that if the United States had any of this material, yeah, things like UFOs that were recovered after they were crashed or whatever happened to them, it would be one of the aviation corporations probably out here in California. Now, I don't know this. I do not for a fact know this. I'm speculating, but I think it's good speculation. I think Lockheed, all right? That's who I think. My personal opinion don't mean nothing in the scheme of things, but that's where I think. So Admiral Wilson called them. They refused to talk to him on an open line. They said, we can't talk to you about anything. If you want to see about anything, you're going to have to come out here to the coast. Well, he purportedly did. He flew out there. They took him into a skiff, all right? He asked them questions, and then the security supervisor in the skiff reached over and pulled out a book known as the Bigot book. And anybody that is qualified, basically, to receive any of this information, their name and identity will be in this book. He searched the book. No Admiral Thomas Wilson was in there. So he said, well, sorry, Admiral, we can't talk to you. Have a nice flight back.
Not allowed.
And purportedly, Wilson hit the freaking roof. He flies back to D.C. He's going to raise holy hell. And somebody pulled him aside and reminded him, you know, you're supposed to retire here before long, and you got a nice fat pension going to be coming to you, and all this other stuff. And there's the possibility that when you retire, they'll give you another Admiral star. Do you really want to do this? And then he settled down. He thought better about it, and he shut his mouth. Now, how do we know all this? Well, Eric Davis. Eric Davis had a meeting with Wilson in the parking lot of EG&G in Las Vegas. And he took copious notes. Okay? Copious notes. Now, I know exactly what he did, and whether Wilson knew it or not, I don't know. He had to have recorded their hour-plus conversation, probably on a digital recorder. And then he wrote it up because it was entirely too detailed if he wouldn't have done that. Hey, I've recorded a hell of a lot of people in my career. I know how that works. So anyway, one of the people that got a copy of these notes was Edgar Mitchell. There was also a lawyer in Australia that got a copy of these notes, and several other people. Okay? When Edgar Mitchell died, somebody was going through his papers and found this interview, or whatever the hell you want to call it, from Davis and Wilson. Ergo, it got out there. So I wrote a paper on this. Now, according to the rules and regulations about any topic that is surrounded by an SAP, once again, that means Special Access Program, it is a violation of federal statute that if you even have knowledge, regardless of whether you know anything or not, if you even have knowledge of a program that's surrounded by an SAP, you cannot talk about it because you are liable to be federally prosecuted. So, when, among other people, Billy Cox called Wilson up, Wilson denied everything. He had to. Okay? If he would have admitted to anything, he would have been in violation of federal statute. So I am not surprised at any of this. Now, Mark, I'm sure you already knew all this, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to disclosure, we have a population. And in this population, they have been marinating in the movies, the books, the comic books, the media, the government now. They've been marinating in this stuff at a hyper degree since the 90s. Okay, because that's really when it exploded, was in the 90s, and now it's exploded again. So they've been marinating in this for 30 plus years. We have a not substantial, but we have a fairly large group of people around the world who don't believe in gravity, They don't believe that the earth is round. They don't believe in dinosaurs. Then I'm got a point here. They don't believe in a lot of these things, okay? So given that as part of the thinking process of human beings in 2025,
well, that tells you a lot about the American school system, doesn't it?
it's not right. It's not just in America, but given that that's part of the educational mindset of a portion of the world, do you, Don, really think they're worried, other than maybe Christian fundamentalists and stuff? And I am actually friendly with a lot of those sorts of people, and I've asked them this question, and that they're okay with it, because no matter what, they'll find a way to fit this into their beliefs about other creatures and stuff out there. They'll fit it in there. At least that's what they told me. They wouldn't freak out about it. Do you really think they're worried about those sorts of people climbing up onto a building with "please take me" signs? Really?
No. Look, anybody, and as a matter of fact, just today, I saw a new shot from the James Webb Telescope that went back literally within just a couple of 100 million years of the so-called Big Bang, if that's in fact what happened. And in this shot, they aimed at it a tiny little speck of space that looked like it was empty. Tens of thousands of galaxies popped right out. Now, a galaxy, it's not like a star. It's billions, a galaxy like our Milky Way, billions of stars, probably trillions of planets. And they saw all of these thousands and thousands of galaxies. So anybody that has the belief that we are the only game in town, oh my God, I feel sorry for you. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's less now. So one has to ask, other than the nefarious reasons of the world government, let's call it, to obfuscate and hide something else non-alien, but use that, right? Doesn't seem to be a lot of reasons, if it's out there, to not just disclose. Because, I mean...
Look, right now, we have something happening very, very interesting. We have apparently the third example, and there have only been 3 that we know of. That interstellar objects are flying through our solar system. Now, back in 2017, the first one that they ended up calling Oumuamua, all right, we didn't even know it was here because it came out of the sun where we couldn't see it and flew past the Earth before we noticed it. And then
because it's sped up.
Inexplicably, it sped up as it left the solar system.
Yep.
Now, among other people that remarked on that, Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb remarked on that this thing, and there was nothing about it that resembled any commentariness about this thing. Wasn't it an ice snowball, dirty snowball? It was apparently a very flat object shaped like a cigar. All right. Then we had a comet that did come in. All right. Apparently from interstellar space. Well, then on July 1st, another object entered the solar system. Very close to the same ecliptic path that Oumuamua was on. This is going to be flying past Jupiter, Mars, Venus, okay? And apparently, it appears at this point, and Avi Loeb said this, to be self-luminescent, not luminescent like a comet, okay? Doesn't have a big trail like a comet has, nothing like that. He believes it's possible, he's not saying it is, but it's possible that it is an extraterrestrial device of some kind. Now, a lot of people have been remarking on this, okay? And of course, you always get the doomsayers that are out there preaching a little fear porn about things like this. But I find it fascinating. And we've talked about this before. What do you guys think?
I find it, dude, there are people who are, we've got tubes under the pyramids. Okay. And where has that gone? Nowhere. Gone nowhere. We have supposedly a giant creature under the sea that's moving. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but go on to YouTube, right? And
you're talking about down in Antarctica?
Yeah. I'm not talking Loeb down. I can't. I don't have the education to talk him down. I can't, right? But I'm getting sick of this shit, Don. And this doesn't discount what he's saying. I'm just getting sick of this.
Well, because there's never a resolution. That's what makes you pissed off.
Well, it's not only that. It's just, you know, I used to like the Mystery History channel on YouTube, and they've just gone deeply into this stuff now. Deeply into this, and I unsubscribed. I can't deal with it anymore because they're constantly showing all of this happy horse shit, and who has the time to do the wheat from the chaff thing? I don't, nor do I really want to, right? So I don't know if Loeb's correct. I don't know why he's saying this stuff. It could be for good reason. It could be for some other reason. I have no idea. Clueless. I just find it highly suspect that we're ramping up even more so than in the 90s. And it was crazy, Don, in the 90s. It was nutty with the Mexico.
Oh, tell me, I was there.
Right. It was freaking crazy. It's way worse now. And again, does this have something to do with the ease of fabrication of some pretty cool stuff? Sure, it's a little easier to fabricate things now and share it now. I get that. But it almost seems like it's purposeful, Don. Almost like we're just going to throw all this garbage out there, just overwhelm the eyeballs, the ears, and the head. Just because there's clicks involved, there's money involved. Hollywood's going down the shitter big time. So money's got to be made off multimedia somehow. And again, I bring up those drones again. Boy, wasn't that a big story, guys? The drones was a huge story. And, it's just...
It was a psyop, and we suspected that it was a psyop.
I have no proof that it was. I don't know what it was.
They've spoken up and said that it was us. They said it was us. And I'm like, if that's true, you're fucking assholes. Just to test to see what people would do. Fuck off.
Well,
I'm surprised nobody went out there with their 30 caliber deer rifle.
Oh, some people did. They started shooting at these things, and that was funny as hell.
Right. We've got these crazy stories about the 10-foot tall guys in the backyard.
Vegas, right.
And then that crazy thing on the strip where supposedly they took the shot, and some other people looked into that. And of course, they're potato cams that are being used. And they said, well, wait a minute, we think it's probably this and that. I mean, it gets to the point, Don, and I don't know if you're there, but I am. You just want to throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm wasting my time here. There's TV shows to watch. There's steaks to eat, right? I mean, it's just gotten so worse, so bad. So thank God for people like Mick West, man. No matter what people might think of that guy, he has conclusively proven things like the jellyfish thing, and conclusively proven the light on the ceiling. I forget what they call it, the chandelier. He's conclusively proved when they said, "Oh, look, there's a giant disc with a shadow underneath it." Conclusively proved within hours where it came from. And
well, there are certain people, okay, and this. I go back to the Mexico 91 example of this. The Mike Wallace of Mexico's 60 Minutes, a guy named Jaime Maussan.
Videos.
Yeah. He ruined that whole thing for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No way. Jaime can't ruin anything, can he?
Well, actually, he did.
Take a little on that.
These, these were initially very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And it was July of 91 when I saw my first example of what allegedly was happening down there.
Yes.
But there are people today that come out, not to pick on them, but George Knapp's buddy, Jeremy Corbell, okay? If I see putting something out, I just dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah, it was harder back then, Don, because when the Mexico Flat broke and they released the 3 tapes of that stuff, right? Oh, well, we recorded this thing from 4 different cameras in 4 different areas. Looked like it was spinning and all that. Very interesting stuff, but it was harder to track stuff down.
Right.
So then when I find out that the Billy Meyer people, the elders, were the ones who were editing that stuff for Maussan and releasing it, I said, well, okay, well, I mean, they've been involved in this stuff for a long time. They have the expertise to do the editing, because this was the 90s, right? Not like now. And when I met with Maussan and had lunch with him, and I asked him, well, that very famous clip, what happened before? What happened after? He was clueless and didn't want to know. And I just walked from the whole thing. I said, you're the one putting this crap out, and you can't even tell me or send me to somebody to find out that, oh, it was a birthday party and we swung it up and looked at it and then it vanished or it took off or something. No extra information. And then the worst one was the rotating UFO behind the building. You remember that one where he went on the TV and said, we'd like some witnesses to tell us if they saw this. And of course, they came out of the woodwork. I saw it. And I said, I'm done. I'm done with this guy. And of course, now we have the mummies.
You don't believe in the sphere? What about the sphere?
Not the other mummies. There's 2 groups of the mummies, right? You've got the ones they showed at that special that looked terrible. Then you got the ones that are kind of look like that, and they actually x-rayed those, and while they look a little odd, they do seem to be human because they x-rayed those.
Well, it's always about the skeletal structure. If the skeletal structure is not cohesive in some way, showing that it joins together,
right,
you're looking at a fake, and you could tell that with the shit that Jaime brought. But this latest stuff looks good.
Very interesting. It looks human, but deformed greatly.
Right.
And again, that stupid sphere, and it's like, oh my God, this is never going to end, man. It can't end. Why? Because everybody's got an HD camera and a producer, not only in the phones, but on their laptops and stuff now. It can't end because everybody's part of it. Now, granted, Red Panda guy, there's people out there trying to do the good work. I get it, that they are actually trying to do work. Mick West and things, but how the hell are you going to keep up on this? When we go back to the Eric, what's that guy's name again? You talked
Davis?
about, yeah. When that guy went and they couldn't find his name in the bigot book, right?
No, Thomas Wilson, the
right.
admiral.
Right.
Yeah.
To what extent are you able to talk about the SAP without getting in trouble? Because he met, he met with a guy in a car in a parking lot and talked for an hour to that guy. So he was breaking that law, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gee. And
you
what
can't
happened
even
to
mention
him?
You can't even he couldn't even mention legally that he was turned away.
Okay, fine. So he does that. And what happens to him? Oh, would you still like your fat retirement and another star?
Oh, yeah. Threats.
Oh, well, wait a minute. So that's how you deal with this breach of the law? Excuse me?
Yeah, because if they take legal action, it becomes known.
What becomes known?
What they're doing
becomes known.
The bigot list,
becomes
all of
known.
it. Yeah, the idea is to keep it on the down low and make your threats, and that's how you keep people quiet.
Oh no,
Because
I get it.
Everybody has a soft spot. Everybody has a soft spot in their life, their wife, their children, something. Except for Don. Don don't give a shit. He's like the honey badger. You don't fucking care.
You touch my dog, I'll kill you.
Yeah, you touch my wife, I'll kill you.
And then I'll kill you again.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a little more just to make sure you're getting aired out properly.
You're our big toe.
Yeah, you're our big. Oh God, that's a good callback to Stripes. Good one.
Yes.
Well,
Sergeant
what do you
Holston.
guys think about this three-eye atlas? I mean, Gerry, you've been following.
I've
this,
been
haven't you?
reading up on it. Because Mark wasn't here this last time, I don't shut up. I didn't have to shut up so much because I like listening to Mark. And Mark was absent, so I could open my mouth, and I got into all the physics and all this shit going on. And I'm fascinated by what's going on with this, and it's got everybody a buzz right now. Now, when it goes by, that's when I'm going to be really engaged with it. Right now, I find this fascinating that it's focusing on two different planets and not Earth. We're going to be on the other side of our orbit when it goes by. So it's going to miss us. So what is its interest, particularly, what's its interest in Jupiter, the gas giant? Why is it? And it's in the way they drew the chart, the one that John showed us, it shows almost like a slingshot effect going around Jupiter to go towards Mars.
Well,
And
Jupiter.
that's
now
interesting.
this is just the top of my head, okay? But Jupiter has some very interesting moons that potentially could be
Europa.
utilized. Yes,
Yeah.
utilized. So
I just
Well,
don't.
we're already detecting what could possibly be life already on one of them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Is it Io or is it Europa that they've found?
It's
what
Europa.
could be Europa.
My
Oddly
answer, Don.
predicted by Stanley Kubrick 40 years ago.
My
Remember that?
answer, Don, is I just don't give a shit, right? 'Cause
well, there
it's
you
like-
go.
Well, it's not like I'm defeatist about it, but I'm so overwhelmed by all the horse shit out there now and all the claims and all this stuff that it's like the bottom line is this. What am I going to do about it? Even if the worst was to happen, right? What the hell am I going to do about it? So, like Gerry said, just wait and see what happens. And,
All I know, as a former soldier, I would like to know if there is an end date when they're going to invade and destroy us so I can go out and finally get the clap.
Well, that's a pretty low bar, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty low, Mark. You're right.
Really low. I keep it. But I put the quote in here. Well, it's not a quote. It's just a mention that Stephen Hawking, and so this has got brought up that Stephen Hawking said, we should keep a low profile. We shouldn't be trying to actively communicate out there, sending signals. We shouldn't be doing that. SETI's doing that. And it's like there's passive listening. That's always good. But when we're shooting signals out, these scientists are possibly putting us in harm's way.
Right,
because
but
we
we're
don't know
already
what's out
kind
there.
of doing that anyway at a slower rate. But
Well, we did it
already...
in 1977 when we launched Voyager 1.
No, I mean
We
in
sent
general,
out a cookbook.
our waves, the different. I'm no expert at this, but they've been.
Well, you're talking about
going
radio
out.
waves, all that stuff going up. But
They're
what
weak.
I've understood about that is that they're so weak and it's hard to break because they're spread out. By the time they get somewhere, they might not even know how to read them by the time they get there.
Right, because they're
So-
stupid, because they've got, interstellar travel and they can go through wormholes and stuff. So they're pretty
You know
stupid.
what is being bounced around continuously
What's
every
that?
day that goes out into space, easily detected?
What's that?
Radar.
Oh, yeah.
Radar. That is obviously artificial.
Yep.
God only knows how much is out there. Everybody uses radar, okay? Aircraft and NORAD and you name it, always looking out there. And I was told one time I shouldn't say this,
Say it. Say it.
Do it. Do it.
but
Get to the chopper.
yeah, really. Who else do you think is keeping a close eye on everything out there all the time?
China.
NSA, National Security Agency,
Well, sure.
signals and technical business. That's their bailiwick.
Yeah.
Looking out there all the time. Now, back in the late 80s, there was a young lady that had been in the Air Force. Her name was Simone Mendez, okay? And she got herself in a bundle of trouble, including the FBI getting on her. She was working in one of those signal intelligence centers when purportedly they observed what appeared to be artificial craft entering the solar system. This immediately was sent to NSA. UFOs, all right? Now, I would imagine they have the technology, they can look out that far. But she stole a carbon paper from those readouts. Okay? And then showed it to some people. It was a big story at the time.
I remember
Big story.
that. Yeah.
Okay? And she's just lucky she didn't end up in the slammer. But hey, it.
Mark just shared it in the chat. Yeah.
Right. Yes, there you go. Very good. I told you, Mark, that man can dig deep. So anyway, yeah, I kind of lost contact with her probably 20 years ago. But there was a time when she was quite popular on the talk circuit talking about that. So it was one of those things. So yeah, these things have been around for a long time. Look, we all know something is there. We know it. All right. You don't have 80 years of this stuff continuously flowing and there not be something to it. And in 2017, that all changed. Changed with Harry Reid and it changed with the disclosure about the Nimitz battle group. Regardless of what those tic tacs end up being, all right, suddenly a lot of people started to take this subject much more seriously. And I got to tell you, I never would have believed that the people that have shown an interest in this would have been showing an interest 25, 30 years ago. Never would have believed it, but yet here it is. So where's it going to go? Well, I'm going to make a prediction. It's going to be the same bullshit for the next 40 or 50 years that we've just witnessed the last 40, 50 years.
I don't agree. Unless
the aliens decide to come down and announce themselves.
No, I think
no evidence.
I think as the technology gets better and better and better, our own government or a government is going to do what was the thing called? The bright light thing, where they're going to make it look like something's coming in or something's up there and it's all freaking phony.
Holographic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I think I forget the name.
That's been a fear of faking the alien invasion.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily know what they're going to fake, but they're going to fake something once. Because right now, I mean, you guys have seen those drone shows. I mean, for what they are, they're pretty amazing. Where they can make the faces in the sky and all that stuff. Well, gee, do we think they can do even more than that without drones and some sort of light capturing things, yada, yada, yada? Well, I have a feeling that maybe even what's the Devil's Tower. Gee, would it surprise you if one day in the next decade or something, we wake up and they go, oh my God, look what's above the Devil's Tower, right? Because they're going to use it, right? For their own.
Back in the 90s, there was no UFO story more spectacular than Area 51. Okay.
Yeah.
And boy, I'll tell you, Vicki and I have been out to Area 51. And we were out there a number of times. As a matter of fact, after Independence Day, ID4, all right, Vicki and I were invited to go out, both give a talk when they renamed the extraterrestrial highway. All right, the governor of Nevada was there. It was a big, shit show. Well, anyway, people were driving out there all the time. And this all went back to Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar in the late 80s talking about the Wednesday night UFO test and all that kind of stuff. Well, one night, a car full of people were out there by the infamous black mailbox. Now, the mailbox is not black. It's white.
Racist.
For whatever reason, right, whatever reason, it's the black mailbox. And as they're driving along there, and it is, to say there's nothing out there would be an understatement, okay? That is, if Nevada has an asshole, that's where it starts.
Dust and lizards.
Dust and lizards.
And suddenly, as they're driving by the black mailbox, a 6-foot Wile E. Coyote cartoon figure popped into existence right there. Now, needless to say, they were somewhat taken aback. And I thought about that. And it hit me. They're using some kind of laser technology, holograms, God only knows what.
Right. That's what I think they're going to do. Yeah.
It's the weaponizing of holography. Absolutely.
Yes. But Wile E. Coyote, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Now, if they'd have shot the Roadrunner there, too, huh?
I would have enjoyed that. I would have went, hey, I'll help you kill him.
Yeah. So, just You know, these kind of little factoids, they get lost in the shuffle. Hey, most people have the capacity for a memory of about the width of a gnat's ass, all right? Because we're on to the next brand new, exciting news cycle.
Yep.
Well, guys, we're down to about a minute left.
All right.
Do you have any final thoughts, Mark or Gerry?
Well, hey, thanks for bringing it up. It's always good to try to get people to look for themselves out there. There is information about the autopsy out there. And, hey, do your own research. Don't listen to us.
Gerry?
With me, look, man, I believe in being paranoid, but the fact is, look, they're probably already interacting with these sons of bitches anyway. The reptilians and all that shit. I do want to meet some of these Nordic, because some of the AI artwork I've seen of the Nordics, they got some big titties. And I'm like, yeah,
nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for keeping the bar high, Gerry.
Of course. It's what I do.
I noticed. Well, that's it, folks. Hey, Thursday night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, UAP Crossfire. The executive producer of the Alien Autopsy will be joining the panel. In the meantime, have a great week. We'll see you then, and keep those eyes pointed up. Good night.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.
Live long and prosper.